On this Independence Day, I want you to remember that your American president has more allegiance to Russia than he does to America. Dead ass. East Coast Radio.
When I used to joke about rising fascism in America and the fall of democracy, I really thought I was being, like, over the top.
Staten Island niggas still puffing the dust plus representing Staten Island.
I mean, like, all kidding aside, I'm a high school dropout. I never thought the words autocracy and kleptocracy would be in my vernacular. I just never thought that that would be a thing.
Staten Island niggas still puffing the dust plus.
It's very, very difficult and frustrating to have progressive ideology living on Staten Island, or as I call it, North Texas. Example, your weed dealer pulls away and he's got a Trump Pence hat sitting on his back windshield. This is real life.
Representing Staten Island. Staten Island niggas still puffing the dust plus.
The most important thing you can do for me listening to this podcast is to not get sidetracked with distractions and nonsense. There is a person occupying the Oval Office who has committed crimes every single day of his life. And the only way to combat this is not to look at polls, it's to go vote in November.
Staten Island niggas still puffing the dust plus. Representing Staten Island.
Want to hear a little story about some of those people who are going to be voting in November? I'll tell you. People that value guns over children. People who think the South will rise again. People that think ending slavery was a failed experiment. White nationalists.
Representing Staten Island. Staten Island niggas still puffing the dust plus.
Be a part of ending the rise of fascism and the fall of democracy in America by keeping it locked to East Coast Radio, Dyze in your house, and hit the polls in November.
Hey yo, who's in the house? Dyze in your house. What goes on, peeps? It is Wednesday, a wacky Wednesday edition of Dyze in your house, coming to you on East Coast Radio. That's East Coast Radio for the least heard voices. And if you have not yet subscribed to East Coast Radio, I need you to go to iTunes right now. Just hit pause on this. Press pause. I need you to go to iTunes. I need you to smash that subscribe button. And when you do, I need you to do me a favor and scroll all the way down to the bottom and possibly leave me some sort of star rating. I don't care how many stars it is. I'm just trying to get a sense of how many listeners I have here. So what I'm trying to do is chart that, and since I'm not smart enough to do analytics, I'm gonna look at the ratings. I got like 7 ratings, and that's more than I ever thought I'd have, so that's good. So today is a different episode. It's a wacky Wednesday edition, as I mentioned before, but also it's important to note that there's a lot of things going on in our country right now. But most certainly the driving force behind a lot of them is Vladimir Putin and the way he has compromised the person that occupies the highest office in the land. This person's been compromised. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And we'll get into that in a second. But when you see things like, oh, it looks like the U.S. may recognize that Russia annexed Crimea, they might think that that's okay. They might just say, all good. You know? When you see things like that, you wonder to yourself, how is that good policy? When you hear that Trump was talking to Macron, the French president, about, they had secretly in private, he was telling him that France should leave the EU, which would cripple the EU even more than it is now after Brexit. Come to find out, when you think about it, who would love the EU to be crippled? Who would that benefit the most? Vladimir Putin. So you may ask yourself, Jay, you always talk about Vladimir Putin. Why don't you tell me, explain to me exactly why? Explain to me exactly why, exactly how this came to be. If we had ourselves a Manchurian candidate, if we had ourselves a Russian cutout, how did this happen? How did this come to be? Well, it came to be because of a lot of dirty rubles. That's right, dirty rubles. A few weeks ago, on the Jay Porks podcast, which is available on the Andy Dare Podcast Network, a couple of weeks ago, I spoke to author Greg Olear. Greg Olear wrote a book called Dirty Rubles, An Introduction to Trump Russia. And I'm going to play that entire hour-long interview with you here for my Least Coast radio audience. Because that's what I'm going to do. Because I love you people. And because I love you so much, I need to spread that love all over your ears by sharing that interview with you. Now, I wasn't going to put it up on Least Coast Radio immediately because that would divert traffic from my long-form 90-minute Jay Porks podcast, which comes out every Monday. Every Monday, we dive into the Mueller investigation. We dive into more corruption. But right here on Least Coast Radio on Dyze in Your House, I try to give you short increments so you can digest things faster, so you can digest things easier. Today is not that. This interview was an hour long. I did not cut the interview. The interview is not cut. So without further ado, well, not without further ado, there's gonna be a commercial break, which lasts about 38 seconds, and then I am going to be joined by author of the book Dirty Rubles, Greg Olear, and I will play for you the 1 hour long interview, talking about tons of things, but pounding home the point that you need to go to Amazon and you should really order this book, Dirty Rubles, An Introduction to Trump Russia. It's affordable. It's like $12. It's like 110 pages or something like that, laying out exactly why the person that a lot of Republicans support is actually Vladimir Putin's puppet. Yes, puppet. Okay? This is not normal. And again, let me just say this again. Russia annexed Crimea from the Ukraine. And Trump is saying that they might, let them have that. Like this is the 1700s and we take over countries. That's not a thing we do. Why would Trump do that? Why would Trump do all these Russia-friendly things, you might ask? Well, if you read Dirty Rubles, if you read the first 20 pages of Dirty Rubles, you would say to yourself, wow, this is incredible. So, after this break, we're going to get to it. Greg Olear, author of Dirty Rubles, An Introduction to Trump Russia, available right now on Amazon. So go get it. And we will be back after this with Greg. Hey, yo. Jay Porks here, recording my own commercials, and just want to let you know you can keep it locked to East Coast Radio on iTunes for all the latest Jay Porks podcast endeavors. And if you keep it locked to AndyDara.com, you will get every Monday the long form edition of the Jay Porks podcast. And East Coast Radio on iTunes is where you're going to get a brand new episode every Friday of Dyze in your house. That's Least Coast Radio for the least heard voices. Now, back to your regularly scheduled programming. And I'm joined by an author whose last name I've been pronouncing wrong for a couple of weeks. Greg Olear, like caviar.
You got it. Thanks for having me.
And Greg, you've written a book, a very insightful book. It's Dirty Rubles, an introduction to Trump Russia. And I just want, just lay out for my listeners who are, they've been hearing me rail about this for, 18 months already, whatever. Let me know what inspired you to sit down and put pen to paper or, fingers to keys and write this book.
Well, I obviously was aghast on election day that Trump was elected. I thought it was terrible for the country. I thought he was a criminal. I thought he was a selfish narcissist. I thought his policies would be awful. I thought he was a fascist potentially and would try to have people kowtow to him. And I thought that the best thing for the country would be to have him leave as soon as possible. And I quickly determined that the way to do that was to expose his ties to Russia, which even then, even in January of 2017 and before, were pretty obvious, as his mob ties were, if people spent the time investigating, which
Absolutely.
I didn't do that until later. But so I decided that I needed to just focus on that. There's so much bad stuff that Trump has done. He's like a whirling dervish. He just stirs up all this stuff. There's the detainments at the airports and the travel ban and the this and the that. If you try to react to everything that he does, it's exhausting. You can't do it. So what I decided was I'm just going to focus on this. This is going to be my beat, if you will. And I'm just going to keep writing about it and learning about it and kind of being the go-to guy about it. And that's what I did. I have a website called The Weaklings. I wrote a lot of pieces over the last year and a half about, various aspects of Trump Russia.
Right.
And I went back, a couple months ago and reread some of these things. And I thought, my God, I was really not wrong about very much. I mean, most of the stuff I wrote is totally true. And I knew about it months and months ago. And the mainstream media is slowly catching on. But what inspired me to write the book is I thought there was a void of this sort of thing, which is people don't understand what's going on in the big picture. People, they hear this story, oh, Manafort's going to jail. That's today's story, which, by the way, is a wonderful thing. It's a beautiful morning here. It's sunshiny. The birds are chirping. And that guy is locked away in a penitentiary in Warsaw, Virginia, and will probably be there for the rest of his life. So
it's fantastic.
Yeah,
it's a great morning.
Right? It's good. It's a good day for America. But like most people would read that and say, Manafort, wait, even my wife, wait, who's Manafort again?
Yep.
It's complicated. There's a lot of people. There's a lot of characters. How do they all fit together? And I said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to write a book, a short book that you can read in under 2 hours, hopefully.
Right.
And in the book, I'm going to lay out just the basic thing of what is Trump Russia. When we say this, what are we talking about? How does the narrative fit together? This story was, people were able to construct the story, but in order to do so, you have to be able to connect the dots the right way. You have to be able to say, this thing happened in the financial press. And, something that might be covered in the business section, and Jared Kushner met with this person, and this also happened. How do these things fit together? So my book really just attempts to do that, and I try to keep it very, very simple. So if you read the book and you're suddenly lost and adrift, then I've not done a good job. The idea is you'd come in, maybe you don't know very much about the story, you don't know what Trump has done. And by the time you finish reading the book, you want him impeached. That's basically what I'm trying to do.
Right. And I mean, I I've said on this podcast a bunch of times that I'm not exactly like a Rhodes Scholar, but like I've been reading this book and like it's a simple read, so like it's not like it's an encyclopedia where people are gonna have to sift through all this and try to keep track and stuff. I mean, there's a lot of connecting the dots goes on in this book. And exactly, who is Paul Manafort? Like, but then when you look back in history and it's Roger Stone, Paul Manafort, working for like, GOP as GOP operatives back in the 80s and stuff, you start to say these guys have always been shady characters, and the person occupying the office of the presidency has probably committed a crime every single day of his life. Is that not accurate? I mean, it has to be every day.
It's up there. I mean, the point is that the presidency, however, whatever political party you belong to,
right?
There's certain baseline attributes that you must possess in order to do the job, starting with loyalty to the country above all.
Yes.
And, I didn't like George W. Bush. I thought he was a terrible president, but I never for a minute doubted that he loved his country.
Right. I never thought that George Bush was conspiring with other countries to,
I think he screwed up Iraq, but I don't think that I think he decided to go to Iraq because he, in his belief, thought that was the best thing for the country. I really believe that, and I think he believes that.
Right.
And if he is the president and that's the information at his disposal, and he makes that decision, as long as the underlying idea is because it will benefit the United States, we can live with that as a country. When the underlying thing is, I want to meet with this dictator of North Korea and talk about where to put condos on the beach in Pyongyang.
My Lord.
That's just not something that should ever come up. I mean, ever.
The photo op.
It just shouldn't.
The photo op with the murderous dictator who's killed starved his people. And people are like, no bell, no bell. I mean, the deterioration of the intellectualism of the American voter, especially the conservative one, like, is unreal. It's unreal to me.
I think it's important, though, to draw a distinction. Like, that Trump likes to sort of make it seem like the Democrats are conspiring against him or this or that. And it's not really a conservative versus liberal thing. I mean, a lot of the people that I follow on Twitter who are really in the know about this are conservatives, like often hard-right conservative. Louise Mensch was a member of Parliament. She's a conservative. John Schindler, whose Twitter handle is 20 Committee, is a right-wing dude. Counter Chekist is a Republican. These guys are all Republicans. Sherry Jacobus, who gave me a great blurb for my book, is a GOP strategist. You know, she's not a crunchy tree hugging liberal person. This is, in my view, this has nothing to do with politics. It's about what is America? What are we as a country? Are we a democracy, or are we going to bow to this fat king?
Right.
And over my dead body, will I do that? That guy he needs to go.
That's
period.
That's what I've been telling people. I mean, I say it all the time that this podcast, I used to talk about fun things, I used to make jokes and stuff like that, but like, listen, I mean, democracy is more important than anybody's tour dates that's happening right now, than any album that's come out. So like, I mean, I never thought that I'd be, and the people you mentioned again, like 20 Committee, we got John Schindler, Louis Mensch, Eric Garland. I mean, these are people I follow on Twitter, and I get a lot. Dena Grayson, lot of information. That's where I got the thread count idea from, because instead of reading the Wall Street Journal articles with names I can't pronounce and stuff, I figured, okay, well, there's some threads going on here, so I'll read them, and they got the highlights and stuff, and it's just, and I'm really learning a lot, and I thought I was crazy. I was reading your book, and I'm like, you know what? I'm not that crazy. I mean, this is actually,
you might be crazy for other reasons.
Well, yeah, no, I'm crazy, but not crazy
not
over this.
Not about this.
Like, I've never been like somebody that watches 18 hours of MSNBC, but if I miss Ari Melber, I feel mad like these days. You know what I'm saying?
Ari's great.
I mean,
Now I forget what I was going to say. I totally lost my. We should tell people it's very early in the morning, where it's like before 8
Yes.
o'clock.
Oh yeah. Well, I'm a
My
morning
second
person.
cup of coffee. It hasn't totally kicked in yet, but
Everybody sees my
you
tweets
were
at
talking
5
being
a.m.
crazy, and that's a technique. Gaslighting is the word that
Mm-hmm.
people are throwing around, and that's what gaslighting is. It's this thing where the abusive party just lies so incessantly that it makes you question your own sanity.
Exactly.
And we've all had days when we wake up and say, "Am I nuts? Like, is this really happening? Or
Right.
am I the only one that thinks that this is bad? Like, what the actual F is going on here?" And the answer is no. I mean, he's doing this deliberately. He's lying so egregiously, constantly, in ways that are just easy to prove that he's doing it. You know, the inauguration size and all of it. It's just maddening. Like, guy, we know. There's video, man. You know.
Exactly.
And I think he's talking to his people, and a lot of these people it's like a cult. They just will do whatever he says.
It's very cultish. It's like Bob Corker was saying the other day. And you know, these senators that like Jeff Flake and Bob Corker that are speaking out against Trump, they're also not running for re-election. So I mean, how much are you really doing to fight this fascist machine?
They're not doing anything other than tweeting lazily. I mean,
right.
Again, Sherry Jacobus put on Twitter the other day, all these one or two of these senators filibusters,
right,
and starts talking about all the Russia stuff. Or if a couple of these, if Susan Collins of Maine and Flake and Corker suddenly are like, you know what, until Trump is gone, we're going to caucus with the Democrats. That would stop everything he's trying to do in the Senate, and they don't do that.
No.
You know, they don't care that much.
They're afraid of him.
Every once in a while, one of them shows some amount of moral fiber, but it's just so pathetic and supine the way that these people are. It's disgusting.
It really is. It really is disgusting what is going on. I mean, like, for instance, like, you know, you said the book is at the end you want, you know, people to understand he needs to be removed from office. So, like, let's just say the trend continues and the Democrats maybe pick up the seats they need in the House. I don't think the math is there in the Senate, so I don't see how he gets removed from office.
I think at that point, first of all, he's never going to be impeached. He's never going to allow that to happen to him because it's humiliating. He's going to resign. I've said this from the get-go. At some point, he's going to resign because that's the only way that first of all, he's a quitter, and he's, above all else, Donald Trump is the biggest fucking pussy that ever walked the face of the earth.
Damn
no
straight.
offense for that word. But
Damn
it's
straight.
Really, that's what he is.
I was screaming the other day.
He is he's a coward of the highest order. I don't think there's ever been a more cowardly human being that has walked the face of the earth than Donald J. Trump. So the idea that he's suddenly this brave guy that's going to go into this, no, it's never happening. He's going to resign. He's going to say, Hillary, deep state, MAGA, blah, 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 and walk out the door, and that's going to be the end of it. And good, you know. At this point, I don't even care if he, you know, I would love for him to go to jail for the rest of his life, but I don't even care. I just want him gone.
Right.
You know?
I just want him not in power in the country anymore. Like, I just don't want... And I understand, like, after this, he's probably going to try to attempt to take, like, a Rupert Murdoch role in terms of, like, you know, news and, like, controlling because there was that talk where after he lost, he was going to start, like, a Trump TV. Like, I believe that all these fascist tendencies are going to continue.
I mean, the thing is, he's not... I just don't think he has the follow-through to do these things. He's old. He's in terrible shape. You know,
well, not according to what the doctor said. The doctor said he's in great shape. You know, that doctor that, you know, took the Percocets and drove off the road or whatever the report was.
I mean, that's the thing. He basically he had like two, like, you know, Rocco and Vito go in there and force this doctor to, you know, at his dictation, write this ridiculous statement about his health. That would be a huge scandal for anybody else. And we forgot about it after like 6 hours. Nobody even talked about that anymore.
Imagine.
That's insane.
I mean, Barack Obama wore a tan suit, and they're still going crazy about it.
Oh, my God. And, you know, Hillary's health. Hillary this, Hillary that.
And her emails.
I've become so protective of Hillary that, like, I feel like she's one of my kids at this point. Like, I will just...
You know what? And you said something in the book that was fascinating, how Hillary Clinton got more votes than any other white male in the history of... Any other white male candidate in the history of, like...
Yeah, the whole
elections.
Country. Like, she got... The only person... Barack Obama, the first time he ran, got more votes.
Right.
And the number 2 spot is Hillary.
Yeah.
So, the idea that people hate her, or that she's a bad candidate, or this or that, I mean, you can think that. I get, like white guys of a certain age, were like, I don't like Hillary.
She's going to have her period all over the country.
I asked my dad, was like, my dad does not agree with me politically, usually.
Right.
And he's like, I just hate Hillary. I was like, well, why? And he was unable to answer the question because he doesn't know why. He hates her because he was told to hate her.
He's been conditioned to hate her. The narrative is to hate her. But
70-year-old white men don't think she's a good candidate, but like black women think she's a good candidate.
Right.
They voted for her in droves. That demographic, and people of color thought she was a good candidate. Women thought she was a good candidate. So just because a bunch of like white dudes are on Twitter saying I didn't like Hillary, that doesn't mean she's a bad candidate, because first of all, the math doesn't bear out. If she was so bad, she beat Bernie by 3 million votes, and then she beat Trump by 3 million votes.
Right.
So the idea that Bernie would somehow then beat Trump is like, well, he couldn't even beat Hillary. How's he going to beat Trump?
I think Bernie and Trump have the same effect where people would tell you they're not voting for Trump and vote for Trump. And I think the opposite is for Bernie. People would say they support Bernie because he's a nice guy, but when they get in the ballot that they won't do. That's why polls, I got to throw out all these polls now, man. We can't, I'm sorry, Nate Silver, but I can't visit your website as much as I want to anymore because I just can't trust it.
The funky election business, I can't even go there. That's a whole other can of worms.
Exactly.
And the people that I follow insist that there was no, tampering with actual numbers. There were lots of things happened. They certainly repressed votes. The GOP did.
Yes. Oh, 100%.
And stuff like that. But the idea that she was bad is just. And back to Bernie for a minute. I feel like Bernie and Trump are almost the same person. And personally, I hate Bernie almost as much as I hate Trump. Because I feel like he's just, the way that I put it is that, they're both snake oil salesmen. Bernie just sells a brand of snake oil that we like. Like what soured me on Bernie, he spent his whole campaign, we got to break up the banks. Break up the banks. Right. Break up the banks. It's like that's all he said. How many words is that? Break up, 4 words. Break up the bank. And then the New York Daily News got him for an interview and said, oh, okay, how would you break up the banks? And he was unable to answer the question. Like, if that's your whole goddamn campaign and you can't answer that question, why are you running? Why are you here? Go away. You're not a serious person. And I could wake up Hillary Clinton at 3 o'clock in the morning from a deep sleep and ask her that question. She would blink her eyes twice and talk about it for 45 minutes without stopping. You know what I mean?
Right.
So this Bernie business is just, he's a cultist. He's not a Democrat. The people get all bent about the DNC. Well, the DNC wanted Hillary and not Bernie. Of course they did.
They wanted someone who was going to win.
Who was funding the whole whole organization. Why would they not prefer her over a guy who isn't even a member of the party? Gave them no money at all. I'm not
even saying that I dislike, Bernie's policies or whatever, but I feel like he can take his revolution and get behind a younger candidate of color or a woman instead of, teasing all this 2020 stuff. I was getting killed by Bernie bros on Twitter the other day because I suggested a Cory Booker Kamala Harris ticket. They killed me.
Oh no, the Bernie Bros don't like that. First of all, many of the Bernie Bros live in the former Soviet Union. For one thing.
That's the thing. People don't ask about Tad Devine.
Yeah.
And they don't want to dig there, but he worked with Paul Manafort in the Ukraine.
That thing was fishy. I think Bernie got in love with all the adulation. Didn't step down when he should have. He's definitely culpable in this.
Yes.
And people tend to give him kind of a free pass, and I will not have it.
Right.
I think he's off. First of all, he's done nothing, in the Senate. Like, what's he done?
Right.
Where's your legislation, buddy? You've been there for a million years.
Talk about it. He's not
Yeah.
being about it. He's talking about it. I mean, listen. I talk. My girlfriend's gonna kill me for this because she loves Bernie, and like, but I always have these talks with her about like, listen. Listen. I don't think he would have won. So the whole idea that he would have been, he would have beat Trump, and the numbers say so. I mean, I don't see it. And I don't see...
He wasn't vetted. His wife is under FBI investigation.
Correct. And that would have came out in the campaign. And that would have definitely came out, and that would have looked bad.
Maybe he would have done okay in the debate or whatever, but Hillary did good in the debates. Didn't make any difference. Like,
she told us that Trump was a Russian puppet. She told us this. We were told. But her emails.
And she was right. As she, usually is, because she's smart and prepared.
Yeah, exactly. Like, people say, what are her policies? She wrote a damn book with her policies. Yeah, right. You can read it if you want.
Her policies, in short, are to make your life better.
Right. I mean, I'm pretty sure when I was a kid growing up, like, in the 90s, like, poor in Brooklyn, I'm pretty sure the health care I had was because something Hillary Clinton was, fighting for when Bill was president. Like, I'm pretty sure that's the health care I had.
Yeah. No, she's off the charts. She would have been fantastic and would have been... right from the gate, like she even knew where the light switches are in the bedroom in the White House. There's
exactly right, yeah, simple things like that, things you think people would know.
It makes me sad to think like we what we chose. Of course, this brings us back to the main point: is that we did not choose. Right,
elections are supposed to be decided by Americans, and there is a lot of Americans that. A lot of non-Americans that decided that had things to do with this election, which is what Dirty Rubles covers. There's a lot of dirty rubles.
There's a lot of dirty rubles, and I think that the Russian money doesn't just stop with Trump. I think it goes, through the NRA into the RNC.
100%.
I think that's why some of these people are just completely
ignoring
slaves to the agenda. Paul Ryan is
obviously
in hock to these people.
Mr. Policy Wonk, where's your spine, bro? I mean, this guy. Come on.
The idea of Paul Ryan as Policy Wonk is just as laughably ridiculous as the idea of Donald Trump as alpha male.
True, facts.
He's just not.
Oh, my God.
He's a buffoon, and he's running the country right now, which is a problem. So,
and it's not good.
But I think that one of the things, to keep it. This is the other thing about the book is that we tend to just talk about whatever's happening in the moment because there's so much happening with Trump. He just throws shit all over the place
on purpose.
That sometimes, on purpose. Sometimes you have to step back and assess what's going on. And with the Russia thing, okay, let's say you're a supporter of Donald Trump and you think he's really, gonna MAGA or whatever, okay? Yeah. And I'm sure there's no one listening right now at this point in the podcast that thinks that, but just in case anybody's out there and is hate listening to us, the thing you have to ask yourself is what's up with all the Russia lying? I mean, he and members of his campaign lied for months and months and months about the contacts with the Russians. He had contacts before, during the campaign, during the transition, after the transition. The contacts, that he and his team had with, Manafort had them, and Cohen had them, and Kushner had them, and Sessions had them.
Sessions is the one.
Had them. George Papadopoulos had them. And, I'm sure I'm forgetting people. Eric Prince out in the Seychelles.
Oh, Eric Prince, this guy. Yeah. Do you watch The Punisher?
No.
No. There's a character on The Punisher, Billy Russo, and I that's like Eric Prince. He's like he runs this mercenary group, and it's it's insane. But like, you're so right. I forgot where I was going with that, but Eric Prince. Yeah, but where?
Well, he is like a James Bond villain in the Ian Fleming novel sense, like his backstory.
Right.
It's just you couldn't if I wrote that in a book, you wouldn't believe that someone like that existed. But
true story.
But these guys all met with the Russians, and then they lied about it. They lied, and they lied, and they lied. And the only reason they stopped lying is because the New York Times got proof somehow of Donald Jr. meeting with the Russian lawyer at Trump Tower.
Right.
that they were going to publish, and then Junior put it on his Twitter feed to get ahead of the story or whatever.
He's
Stunad.
He's really smart.
And and then they started to say, well, other people met with the right. Now, no one meets with Russians.
Right, that's not a thing.
Hillary's people didn't meet with the Russians. Obama's people didn't meet with the Russians. Michael McFaul, who was going to be the ambassador to Russia under Obama, did not meet with the Russians. So why the fuck were there all these meetings with the Russians, and why did they lie about them, and why are they still lying about them? So if you support Trump, you have to answer that question to yourself. You have to reconcile it to yourself. What is the answer?
Right.
What possible is it? Because he really thinks Putin is a great guy and he wants to bring peace?
I mean,
you really believe that?
Putin's
a mobster.
Putin's lifelong goal is the fall of the West, like the democracy over here. Yeah. Like, because these active measures started before Trump. I mean, there's a great little thing in the book where it talks about, I think it was Bill Browder was telling a story about when Putin locked up the first oligarch,
the richest oligarch.
Right, the richest, most powerful oligarch.
Yeah.
And the other ones came up to him and they said, how do we prevent this from happening? And he said, half. I mean, that's just some...
Yeah.
That's some... man.
I mean, that even Tony Soprano doesn't take half.
Again, yeah. He takes a percentage. It's a bond story. That's what it is. And, like, of all these Russian ties, like, I was at work one day, and when I saw the news broke that Sessions, I was like, Jeff Sessions? This guy is like, I mean, I know he's like against like civil rights and stuff, but like, again, another guy who I think likes America, you know what I'm saying? Another guy who I didn't think was treasonous, is meeting with Kislyak. I did not have any meetings with the Russian government. Yes, you did. Yes, you did.
He did, and you have to wonder with Sessions. I mean, he clearly perjured himself.
Right.
And, nobody's done anything about that. So, there's speculation that there is at least one mole operating in the Trump campaign working for Mueller. And many people think that at least one of the moles is Sessions.
Ooh.
And that he got some kind of deal where he's going to inform and he's going to stay where he is. He's not allowed to quit. And just, disrupt and inform from the inside.
Fascinating.
So, which makes sense, because Sessions is clearly one of the guys that's guilty. I mean, I think anybody that met with a Russian should be in prison or on the receiving end of a rope on the White House lawn.
It's conspiring against the United States. It's not like, it's not small crimes.
Yeah, no, I'm not like, capital punishment is not something that I think should be used generally.
Absolutely not.
When treason to this degree is, goodbye.
No, but you know what I like? I love when they say, well, it can't be treason because it wasn't a time of war. It's like, oh, so now we're justifying, like, we're changing the definition of treason? Like, cyber warfare, that's not an act of war?
Right, yeah. No, it's... that stuff makes me mad. Like, the legal definition of treason says that... Well, collusion actually is... Oh, shut up. You know what we're talking about. We can use these words colloquially because I think they have meaning. I actually have substituted the word sedition, which I think is a lot, it's a sexier word. It
sedition.
Sounds more evil than treason even does.
Sedition.
Sedition. These guys are guilty of sedition.
I like that.
And, the punishment for that is always death. Always. In a functional society.
Listen, if you're trying to kill democracy, I mean, maybe that's something you deserve.
Yeah. I mean, it is the worst thing that you can do. What Kushner is doing.
Oh,
boy. Is the worst thing that you can do. You're trading in, you're sacrificing the safety of our servicemen and women to get to bail out your company's stupid, building buy. Or whatever.
How is he not in jail?
Forget it. Hang him.
How is he not in jail? I mean,
he will be. He and Junior are going to they're going to get indicted at some point. That's a mortal logic. There's no way that's not happening. I think that there must be some mechanism that Mueller is using. There must be some reason why he hasn't done it yet. Because I've heard whispers of the Kushner indictment since December.
Yeah.
That it was, it's going to be this week. Oh, it's going to be that week. And it hasn't happened, and there must be some reason why. Now that Manafort is in jail, and maybe something. I don't think he's going to flip.
Not me either. I think he looks like he doesn't care. I'll just stay in jail or I'll kill myself. I mean, if I'm going to stay in jail for the rest of my life, he's a thug since day one.
Yeah. I don't think he's flipping, and I don't think he's going to get pardoned either. There's a lot of talk of, Trump is going to pardon these guys, and I put this on Twitter. He doesn't understand how the pardon power works. I think, remember, like, when you were a kid, maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm dating myself. We used to have these things at the pool, be like, I'm Superman, and I'm this guy, and I'm this, or I'm Fireball doesn't work on me, and I'm everything proof. So
right.
Say. And then the everything proof person always won, and you'd be like, damn, I should have said I was everything proof. Trump thinks that that's what the pardon wants. He thinks it's a wand. He can just wave it, everything will just go away. And it doesn't work like that. Like, if he pardons Manafort from his 8 million crimes that he's indicted for, first of all, he can only do the federal ones. And then Manafort, in order to accept the pardon, has to admit guilt in all of these things. And one of the things, he's guilty of conspiring with the campaign. So he'd have to admit that he was guilty. And then later, after Mueller was trying to try Trump for it or whatever, he would not be able to plead the fifth.
Right, because he's already admitted guilt.
Yeah. So he can say whatever the fuck he wants, and he has to tell the truth. Because if he doesn't, then he can be, charged with perjury or whatever. So, it's not going to help Trump to pardon Manafort, at all. In fact, it's better for Trump if he stays in jail.
Right. If you pardon people to get you out of your criminal conspiracy, that's a crime. I mean, you're not allowed to pardon people.
That is also an element. But even from a tactical standpoint, I'm going to pardon him. Well, then he's going to have to testify against you, and he can't not.
Right.
So what are you going to do? I guess he's going to lie, but then you're going to have to pardon him again. Like, how many pardons are we? The fact, by the way, that we're all talking in the paper and the press and the op-eds are talking about presidential pardon of people that are clearly guilty of major crimes is ridiculous and has never happened before in the history of this country.
We've gotten way too far off the rails. We've gotten way too far off the rails in terms of, like, politics. I mean, like, there's taking speech money, and then this is just nuts.
Yeah. And, the best thing that can happen for democracy is that November comes around, there is a blue wave that's unlike anything that anybody's ever seen before, and all of a sudden, the minute those people are sworn in, they impeach them, and that's it. And then everybody steps down, and we can have a functional, and we can put the system to the test, because the Constitution has things in place for this eventuality. So let's test it. Let's let it play its course and see what happens. I mean, that brings us back to Pence. We haven't talked about Pence yet.
Oh man,
have we?
We have not.
Now, I don't think that Pence can be president, because here's a guy who, now Manafort is in jail. So this criminal, we can now safely say that he's a criminal, picked Manafort. Manafort picked Pence specifically and sort of foisted him upon Trump.
Right.
Manafort was then the head of the transition team. His deputy was Mike Flynn, who has already pled guilty and is going to go to jail at some point for some amount of time.
Right.
His chief of staff was really tight with Rick Gates, another guy who is under indictment and has flipped. Pence is either the stupidest person that ever walked the earth, or he's guilty of at least knowledge of these things happening. So you can't replace a guy up to his eyeballs in treason with a guy only guilty up to his waist.
Right.
Pence has to go.
It's actually like when they needed Spiro Agnew to resign before they could have Nixon resign.
Exactly.
And
the Nixon template is so helpful here.
Yeah, but you know what the thing is about the Nixon template that I don't like is that Nixon won 49 states in his re-election campaign. You know what I'm saying? Like it. So I don't.
Yeah, but
I don't like the
Watergate happened much closer to it. Watergate didn't happen in the first, whatever the Watergate event is, it was before the first Trump thing. So the timeline is way pushed back. Also, Nixon has conservatively 50 IQ points on Trump.
Oh, yeah. No, he actually can go overseas and talk policy with people and shit like that. I mean,
Nixon was very, very smart. Yeah. And I think ultimately also cared about the country and wanted the country to
Right.
succeed.
I don't know of any other president that hasn't that I felt doesn't care about the country than this guy. Only cares about what can this do for the Trump organization? What could this do for the Trump brand?
Right. And the failing Trump brand, I think we have to
It was never. When was it successful? In the 80s? I mean, look at Atlantic City. I can't even go to Atlantic City anymore.
I know.
It's a ghost town.
Yeah. Now it's very hard to bankrupt a casino. I mean, you have to be
right?
a special brand of stupid.
It's insanity. It's just not. It's not something fathomable. But that's a lot of things these days. It's not something fathomable. So you just to backtrack, you feel if there's a blue wave in November, you feel if they bring up the articles of impeachment, that Trump will resign instead of facing.
Yeah. He's not going to go into the House or whatever it is and have to try.
Right.
It's just not going to happen. Because he's guilty. I mean, he knows
he's very guilty.
On some primal level. He might have convinced himself that he's not in the way that OJ did, but he's not going to walk into a situation where he's going to be humiliated and where he's not going to be able to control the narrative.
Right.
If he resigns, then he controls the narrative.
They forced me out.
Does he really like the job? I mean,
I think he hates the job. I don't think he wanted it. I don't know where are the best people that he was going to hire. Like, I really thought that he was going to hire some, like, regular conservatives to run the country, and he was just going to sit there and be stupid. I didn't know that he was actually going to, like, make decisions. I thought he was hiring the best people for that. What happened to the best people?
No, it's just that, like, to me, I mean, and the lack of intellectual curiosity. I mean, if you're the president, you have every day the presidential daily briefing, which gives you all these nuggets of real intel from the best, intelligence service in the world, combined with other awesome intelligence services, and stuff that's going to happen or is happening months before they find out about it in the press. Right. Okay. Trump, instead of doing that, just watches Fox and Friends.
Exactly.
Like, what a moron. What moron.
He doesn't read the presidential briefing. He doesn't read stuff from our intelligence agencies, but, he reads stuff that comes to him from Israeli intelligence, Black Cube, when he's trying to dig up dirt on Eric Schneiderman. But that's, another story for another day.
Right, yeah. That's,
I mean...
Well, his replacement is doing yeoman's work in New York.
Yes. No, I like it.
Yeah.
I'm a
so
fan
maybe
of
it's, I don't know. But I think that's what has to happen. But, one other thing I want to touch on before I don't know how far into it are we?
We're 36 minutes. I mean,
we're not so bad. We're not so bad. Okay.
No, this is good.
One more thing I want to, touch on, because I think it's important, is this feeling of hopelessness that people get.
Yes.
I think that's one of the reasons why people tune out. They say, my God, I can't, there's nothing I can do.
Right.
Politics is stupid. The politicians are all awful, blah, blah, blah. Forget it. I'm just going to tune out and I'm just going to do whatever. And that is not the case. There is something that people can do. I mean, when people really get vocal about stuff and call their congressmen and call their senators and just talk about it,
right.
Stuff does happen. I mean, the main thing, what I've been trying to do in my limited way, is to just stay positive and stay hopeful and tell the truth,
Exactly.
and not back down about it and not say, oh, I don't want to have this on my Facebook feed because so-and-so might not like it.
Right.
Too bad.
Exactly. That's so my mantra these days.
We're in crisis as a country, and we have to talk about it. And just talking about it and not being afraid to bring it up and making people aware of what's going on is a huge thing that people can do. I mean, it's absolutely in everybody's power to, learn more about the situation and talk about it.
Exactly.
And that's it. That's something that everybody can be doing and should be doing. Right. And that would, in the end, that'll be enough. There's a lot of people in this country. Most of the people in this country do not like Trump.
Right.
And certainly are not going to like the results of the things he's attempted to do.
Oh my God!
This health insurance business, if he really dismantles that, you're going to have people, especially in red states where there's a lot of guns, in a situation where they can, you're terminally ill, you can't afford health insurance, you're going to die in 6 months because of something some congressman did.
And
You
you've
know,
got
if
a
you
gun.
live in Alabama and you have 17 AR-15s in your garage, you're going to put two and two together maybe and say, hey, I'm going to go take out the person responsible for this. We've already seen it with that Scalise guy.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
they should be afraid. Like, if I was them, I would be terrified because, you know, you're going to do really real damage. It's one thing if you say, your taxes are going to go up by 3% or something.
Yeah.
That's not something that really people feel. But to take away somebody's health insurance, in some cases, is to condemn them to die. And, you know, we know who's to blame because it didn't happen under Obama.
Right.
And now suddenly it happens because Trump is president and he did this thing. I mean, these guys are playing with fire with that. You know, there is a point where people will stop being passive. You know, the French Revolution started because basically France had a big war and they financed the war out with debt. And they had the ability to say, hey, we could tax the noblemen a little bit, or we can like super duper tax all the poor people. And the king was like, nah, we'll just tax the poor people more. And that was it. It was too much. The levee broke, and the next thing you know, his head was in a bucket. You know, so people will rise up when. I don't think people in this country realize how precious freedom and peace are. You know,
right.
And how rare historically. Like since the end of World War II, you know, we've had a couple of wars, other than Vietnam for a little while. You know, nothing was draft. You know, for my entire lifetime, it's been peace. You know, you only join the army if you want to. I'm not under attack or threat in any meaningful way. That's rare historically.
Right.
It's super rare. And it's precious, and that's to be defended. So when these people want to go around and say, you know what, this international alliance system that's created this peace and prosperity since the end of World War II, you know, we're going to destroy that because Belgium doesn't pay more. That's just madness. And, you know, that's not something that people think about. But my God, if he continues to damage things the way that he's done, there will be real world consequences that a lot of people are going to feel. And one of those things could be enough to make things turn ugly in a hurry. You know, when things happen, they happen very, very quickly.
Right.
So, you know, historically,
if we can get this back, if Trump can be out eventually and we can get this steered back in the right direction with proper politicians, we still are going to have decades of rebuilding because of what is going on. I mean, with the Allies and stuff like Canada, and like we just won the World Cup. It's the World Cup in 2026 that we just won.
Yeah.
Even though FIFA's a corrupt organization. Oh yay, we got the World Cup. But and Trump said, don't worry about the immigration plan, because people are going to be able to travel in 2026. You're going to still be president in 2026? I hope not, because that's not American.
Yeah, no, he's not. But one of the things, what I hope will happen, and I don't know that it will, and a lot of this is up in the air, certainly. What I hope will happen is that the next person, whoever it is, comes in and says, God, this is a mess. It's a divided country. What we need to do is, pass some things that people can get behind. I mean, most people in this country want, gun regulation, for example.
Right.
Like
common sense gun regulation.
I think it's like 95% or something. It's super duper high.
Not getting rid of the Second Amendment, just background checks and common sense gun reform.
So just common sense gun laws for, AR-15s, you can't have them unless you're in the Army, you know. Like basic stuff like that. So, you do that. You do a thing. Healthcare needs to be addressed. It's ridiculous. It needs to be addressed. So some sort of common sense healthcare, Obamacare, by the way, was an idea that was stolen from Romney Care, which was stolen by the Heritage Foundation, which is a far-right GOP think tank. Right. It's not like the Republicans were always against this, the healthcare thing. I mean, healthcare, not having universal healthcare is terrible for business. It's terrible for entrepreneurship, which is what they should run on. How many people are in a job and have an idea that I want to start this great new business, but I can't because I need the health insurance from my employer. So I'm just going to sit here and not do it. That's terrible. We don't want that. It's a terrible thing. So somebody could come in and do the gun thing. They could do the health care thing in some way and build on Obamacare. and expand it. They could come in and clean up the immigration. Obviously, that's probably the first thing they would do.
Oh my God, please!
These immigration things,
ripping families from.
And 1, 2, 3, that would make things better. Put in some things about emoluments and Wall Street fixes and this and that, and then see what happens. And people can get behind all of those things. Marijuana should be legal everywhere. It's stupid that it's not.
It's ridiculous.
I don't like it. I don't smoke it myself. But
right.
It's called weed because it's a fucking weed.
Right.
That grows. Just let it grow. Who cares?
Exactly.
And,
it's not a
yeah.
Tax, regulate, keep it safe. And if you look at the stats from all the legal states like Colorado, John Hickenlooper was saying that the same amount of people is smoking pot before it was legal are smoking pot after it was legal. So, I mean, there's no rise in crime or anything. Let's take that off the black market. And you know what? If Republicans want to not fund things like public schools and, healthcare and stuff like that, you know what? I know that Colorado gave like $2 million of their money towards public schools. On the first year.
They made windfall and this and that, and also you think about the expense of the Drug Enforcement Agency to prevent marijuana. It's bad. Also, people come in, they go to the parks, the national parks, because you can't do it on private land because the feds can seize it. Right. So they go to the national parks. They have these horrible pesticides that are illegal in the country.
Exactly.
That they get leached into the water so they can grow these things. They bring in immigrants and leave them there like slaves to watch over. It's a terrible mess. And if you legalize it, all that goes away.
All of it.
And a lot of it ties in very closely with immigration, actually, and human trafficking. And that would just make it go away. You're still going to have your hard drugs, but as I understand, a lot of the stuff is pot, So, these are things that common sense people want.
Right.
If more than 80% of Americans approve of thing X, just do it. Just do it. Get it done in a unifying sense. So I hope that when Trump leaves, we can have this great this sort of progressive movement where, I don't even know if progressive is the right word, where people just get caught up, with basic common sense things. Abortion is legal now. Ireland is a Catholic country, and it's, come on, guys. Just stop fighting about it.
You got the Pope. You got the Pope telling gay people that God loves you the way you are.
Right.
How crazy is that?
It's time to get caught up. This is the 21st century, and
exactly.
There's certain things we shouldn't be worrying about anymore. And those are things. I think those are things that most Americans want. And that's it. People can go around and crusade against and say don't have an abortion. There's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
With having that stance, but you can't have it so that nobody can have one. I mean, that's ridiculous. That's
nobody can have one no matter what.
Handmaid's Tale,
Even if my uncle raped me when I was 12, I can't have an abortion. I mean, it's just
right. We have things like you can't have an abortion, and then the rapist gets the rights to visit the child. It's just
I can't
crazy,
even
kooky stuff. And these things can be eliminated. The prison system needs to be overhauled. Maybe having all these guys in prison will make them realize that how badly the prison system needs to be overhauled.
That's true. That's true. Maybe Paul Manafort will call Trump and be like, "Hey, listen, we need to reform this."
Yeah, the linguine it isn't good in
it's
here.
Not, yeah, no.
Generic, the ShopRite brand. We need.
It's too al dente for me.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Oh man, well, listen, I'm glad you wrote this book, man, because especially if it's an easy read. It's only like 100 pages. I would suggest everybody, and it's on Amazon. And where else is it? Tell people where we can get it.
For now, I'm working on getting it other places. I wrote it very, very quickly. I published it on a small imprint that is mine. So usually when you write a book, you have many months beforehand to work out details like distribution and the books, people having it and people writing about it. I didn't do any of that. I wrote it really, really fast. I published it as fast as I possibly could.
Well, it was needed.
Now I'm trying to get people to go read it. So I did everything backwards in a sense because I felt the urgency. I think this is an urgent story. So for now you can get it on Amazon. If you go to your local bookstore and ask, they can order it.
Yeah.
Which would be super helpful.
All right, so people should
I'm working
do
on an
that.
audiobook. At some point, that will be available.
Yeah, I heard the first chapter. The first chapter you have on SoundCloud. The first chapter of it.
Yeah, I got that. That's on the website, which is just dirtyrubles.com.
Right. Okay.
So we're getting there. We're getting there. We're ramping it up, and every day something happens, and I think, I'm always afraid, like, oh, did I get anything wrong? No, didn't get anything wrong.
Right. I mean, sometimes, like, I'll record a podcast on Sunday, and then by the time it comes out on Monday, it's like, oh, man, like, 3 things happened, and I'm, and I'm out here. But,
I mean, I'm sure there'll be certain things in there that'll, this detail wound up being more like that than like that, but...
Yeah, but you're a
everything in
novelist.
there is pretty basic.
But you mentioned that you're a novelist, and, you're, telling this story as a story. Like, the footnotes are very, like, useful to me. Like, I can go down and read, like, stuff like Felix Sater. We're not sure if he's a white hat or...
Yeah, I don't know what to make of that guy.
Yeah, it's like...
this really colorful character, and he seems to be doing, like, almost like a publicity tour of liberal people. Like, all of a sudden he pops up on Twitter, like, hanging out with people that I follow. I'm like, what's going on with this guy? Is he just trying to make people like him? Is he actually a white hat? I have no idea. I have no idea what to make of him. He's probably nuts. He's probably really fun to hang around with. I'm sure.
I bet he is. I mean, he'll crack a bottle over somebody's head in a bar.
Yeah.
And that's just...
who among us is not...
Yeah, who among us has not, tried to stab someone with the shards of glass that they broke off a Coors Light bottle?
Yeah, he doesn't follow. I don't think he follows me. I think Sam Nunberg follows me now.
Sam Nunberg
follows me.
Oh man, remember when Sam Nunberg went on TV that day and just was like all over that was like a really fun day.
I felt bad, but Ari did a good job with him.
Yeah, right.
I thought he was really compassionate, and he could have like pounced on him, and he totally didn't. And that guy for that. Yeah. No, it's just it's strange, the Sater thing. There's just these side characters, and I don't know. We'll see. Like Carter Page, I'm not entirely sure what his deal is. I mean, I know he's a Russian guy, but is he just crazy? I don't know.
I mean, judging by that hat he wears.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. He looks pretty nuts to me. I don't know. He's just like this wacky character, and there's so many wacky characters caught up in a campaign that somehow got more electoral votes than possibly the last great politician if we don't fix this. Is that not fair to say? I mean...
It's just it's a perfect storm meeting a perfect storm, And I think that, ultimately we're going to survive because the Republic is strong. I believe in America. I believe in Americans. I believe that when people are told what's actually happening, that we'll do the right thing. And maybe maybe we should talk about this for a second before we wrap up. Fox News is a big problem with this.
Oh yes.
The way that people watch that show and assume that they are being told things that are factually accurate, and the way that they are not, they're just being lied to. I mean, it's state propaganda at this point in a very real sense, in that Sean Hannity talks to Trump all the time, almost every day. They form policy together, and then he goes on TV and sort of acts like he's a subjective journalist.
Right, when really he's a performance
misrepresenting
artist.
who he is. He's not a journalist. He is he's basically a member of Trump's camp.
Right, he's the chief of staff.
Yeah, he basically is. And, that just in and of itself, I mean, real journalists, old school journalists don't even vote because they don't want to be perceived as having political biases.
Right.
That's the way that they're taught. So, this is just beyond the pale.
Beyond the pale, beyond the bin, as they would say.
He's definitely mixed up. Hannity is with Assange. The fact that he is a client of Michael Cohen.
Oh boy.
Can only mean that he's hooked up with some Russian mob something. I don't know what else it could possibly mean.
This whole Assange thing, people put, this guy's a Russian asset.
He's a spy, and that's it. You look back and you say, God, I got fooled back by the Edward Snowden thing. I thought that he was okay, and he tweets things now that I agree with, but I thought he was okay, and Obama did not. Obama wanted him brought to justice and this and that, and I remember thinking, oh, Obama, what are you doing? This guy, da, da, da. But Obama was right because he had more information than we did.
Right.
And you know, Assange is the same thing. You know, they wanted Assange here too. Like, he claims to be this political prisoner. He's not a political prisoner. He's hiding because he raped somebody and he doesn't want to go to trial.
Wasn't it like a 13-year-old girl, 14-year-old girl or something?
I don't know what the detail is, but like that's why he's there. You know, he's there to evade the law. So at some point, I mean, you know, he's going to come out and he's going to get arrested as soon as he gets out of that place.
Right.
The Brits will arrest him and maybe send him here. I don't know. But getting back to the Fox News thing, like, this is an organization that has just lied. Like other places, CNN gave Trump too much airtime, and the New York Times has just written some terrible stories.
That Halloween article.
Maggie is awful and stuff, but Fox in particular is just lying. And people watch only that, and they take away from it, and they don't know what's happening. But in order for Fox News to survive in a post-Trump world, they will have to pivot and turn on him. They will have to do that because otherwise they're just going to be perceived as what they actually are, which is state TV and Trump TV. And once people realize, oh my God, these people have lied to us, they will stop watching. This has happened before in American history. At the time of the Spanish-American War in the late 1890s, William Randolph Hearst ran these newspapers that were very lurid. And he basically drummed up interest in the war, the Spanish, you know, to go to Cuba. And in the paper, he just basically ran these articles that were not accurate.
He basically started the war.
We went to war because of this. And eventually people realized that it was bullshit. And then they started reading the New York Times instead, because the Times, their template was, we're just going to be objective and tell the truth. And people do want to hear the truth. You know, they do want to hear that. You know, not that there's not, you know, you can have people on there that are opinion people. I always like to read what they have to say, but if you're going to be on a news show, you got to tell the truth. You know,
absolutely.
It's basic. So Hannity has not done that. I think he's going to fall. I think Fox is going to pivot as an organization. You know, this Tucker Carlson and his fat head are suddenly going to be like, hey, wait a minute, Trump did blah, 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 blah. And that's going to be a big sign. That's a canary in the coal mine that this thing is rapidly ending.
Well,
so we'll see. You know, now Manafort's in jail. His organizations are being sued by the state of New York for the charity stuff, and you know, it looks damning. So at some point they have to say, Jesus, this guy's a criminal. Maybe we should not back him as much as we have.
You know, if we don't want to, we want to exist as a news entity anymore.
Yeah. That's what I think.
Jeannie Pirro's on this spinning conspiracy theories.
Yeah, it's just it's insane. You know, and if people are going to protest and they're going to take to the streets, the place to take to the streets is right outside that Fox and Friends studio.
Oh yeah,
which is right in Midtown Manhattan. Just go there.
We should organize something like that.
You know, what would they do if 100,000 people showed up there and burst their way into the studio,
holding up signs that say Trump's a criminal? Trump
would see it.
Yes, he would. That's how you get in touch with Trump, through TV.
Yeah. It's really just ugh. But I remain hopeful. I really do. I think we're going to win in November. I think that Mueller is going to come through with these indictments, and I think that these people are going to, you know, justice will be served.
Well, I mean, again, I never thought, like, you know, as a weed smoking liberal, I'd be sitting here rooting for the FBI. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's weird to me, but like, you know, I am, because, you know, listen, when I've committed crimes in the past, I've gotten in trouble, and I've, you know, had to pay the consequences. Yeah. So it's not right that there are crimes being committed at the highest levels, and people just walk away unimpeded. Yeah, we can't have that. No, the global mafia has to end, and it has to end now. Yeah,
certainly we have to end it in this country and be a bulwark against it. I mean, that's for sure. And, you know, and we're going to do it. I think that, you know, this was a bad, Trump's election was bad for organized crime. And that's it.
Yeah, because it exposed it.
Exactly.
It put it on a grander scale.
People know. And by the time all is said and done, they're really going to know. And,
there's way more.
You know, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens.
Man.
Well, how do you usually wrap up, man?
Well, I don't you know what? You're my second interview I've ever done. You're the second guest on my podcast. And I just want to say, man, thank you so much for coming on and, like, just breaking some of this stuff down for me. Because, again, you break it down for me, and you break it down for some of my listeners who may think that I've, fallen down a far left, rabbit hole of conspiracy theories. It's not. Check out the book,
Right.
Dirty Rubles. It's on Amazon. And look for it, other places. Follow Greg. I'm going to get it. Olier, right?
Close
Oliar?
enough. As long
Oliar, like caviar.
as you don't O'Lear me, it's okay.
All right, it's not Olier. And you could find Greg Oliar featured in the thread count sometimes, because he's always got a sick thread going on Twitter. And, anything else you got to plug before I let you get out of here and, you continue your media tour?
Yeah, no. I'll be in Woodstock, New York on July 3rd at the Golden Notebook.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I got an event there. And in November, the Sunday before Election Day, I will be doing reading at, wait for it, KGB. Yes.
KGB. It all comes full circle, doesn't it?
It
Well,
all comes from full circle.
I will make sure that I'm there. And
right,
if any book tours or like if any like book signings show up like in the future in the city or whatever, you get in touch with me. I'm there, bud.
All right.
All
Thanks
right,
so
man.
much for having me. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you so much. The book is Dirty Rubles. It's on Amazon right now. Go to your local bookstore. Ask them to order it.
All right. Take
All
care.
right, man. Talk to you later. And that book is available on Amazon. It is Dirty Rubles, an introduction to Trump Russia. And I thought you needed that on Independence Day. I thought you needed that on the 4th of July. While you're blowing up fireworks, I want to make sure that everybody knows why while we're blowing up those fireworks, I want you to get a visual picture of what this regime, what this fascist regime is doing to democracy. And that is putting a match to the flare and lighting it on fire and blowing it up. That's what's happening to democracy in 2018 right now. And it's been happening for 2 years already. And we cannot, as a people, become complacent. And I'm gonna keep pounding this point home. Greg mentioned it in the interview. We need a mass protest at the Fox News studio. Fox and Friends, where they filmed that. We need a massive protest outside. We need signs. We need to go there, and we need to be noticed. And we need to organize, and we need to get to Washington, D.C., and block arms at Capitol Hill, and not allow any Supreme Court justice to be voted on. Not allow any Supreme Court justices to be nominated by a criminal whose criminal investigation into him will eventually bring several items to the Supreme Court, which will be decided by judges he picked. That's not American. That's not justice. Justice delayed is justice denied. But what is justice escaped? What happens when justice doesn't happen? Justice delayed is justice denied. Justice delayed is justice denied. What about when there's no justice at all? That'd be America now. We got people, career criminals, escaping, just living life, gonna skate by. And I'm sorry if I think that's unacceptable, because when I commit a small misdemeanor, I get justice not delayed on me. J. Porks, Dyze in your house.